See if I can zoom in a little bit. All right, I think we should be doing pretty good. All right, hopefully everyone is enjoying their day out there. Usually it takes a minute for YouTube to put these videos actually live, so we'll see how this goes. I'd have to find out how many seconds that is. But I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the world's #1 English fluency guide. It is a pleasure to welcome you to another video here. Let me know where you're from if you have any questions. And in the last video, I was asking people why they're learning English. So let me know. The more specific you are, the more I can help you with your speech. All right, so today I wanted to talk about psychology. I'm going to talk about psychology today. I know lots of students are most interested. Maybe I'll start with, from Belarus, nice to see you there. Maybe I'll start with actually something a little bit different about your brain. We'll start, this is a very bad, very bad picture of a brain here. It kind of looks like a brain a little bit. So inside your head, so this is your eye, nose, and mouth. It's kind of a scary picture, but yes, the brain. See, the speech is such a mental activity that even if you know lots of words and phrases and you can understand what I'm saying right now, you still have trouble, or you could still have trouble expressing yourself, really because of this. So more than anything else, like practicing a sport or like playing the piano or an instrument or doing anything else that really involves your body, communication is mostly mental. And so part of this is what you know. What you know, obviously you need to know information. You need to have some foundation in the language to communicate. If you know nothing, then you can't speak. But the other half of this is who you are as a learner, who you are as a person. So I want to talk about that. And this is an interesting topic because I have so many different people who follow me, but they are kind of, pardon me, in groups. So I have different kinds of learners who learn with me, and I'll talk about them in this video. And if you have questions about that, you can let me know. But the basic idea is you can imagine a pyramid here. And this is the kind of language and your ability to communicate up here, but this is who you are. And who you are makes a very big difference to how you improve. And what's interesting is I can give the same lesson, so even watching this same exact video, you could have 10 different people have different reactions to this video. 10 people might improve, one person improves way more than someone else, and even though it's the exact same content. So most of that has to do with who you are. Some of that is the language or the words and phrases that you know. But specifically, I thought this would be a fun thing to talk about for building fluency for one particular type of learner that I have. So a lot of very smart people follow me, and I'm assuming they're smart. I've never met them before, but these are people who own their own businesses, or they are executives, or they are doctors or lawyers. These are the kinds of people who follow my channel, who buy my programs. And so many of them are very smart, but they tend to overthink things. They tend to overthink things. So we may talk about a few different kinds of learners in this video, but this one that I wanted to talk about specifically in this video, my goodness, is the perfectionist. The perfectionist. So the perfectionist is someone who knows actually quite a lot, and they study very hard and want to make sure they understand everything very carefully, but they want to be perfect about everything they do. And this can be a real serious, a pretty serious problem. It can become a serious problem for many learners, but the problem, kind of most people that experience this, is they're really frustrated when they can't find exactly the right thing to say. And I want to show you in this video that it's really not necessary to have the perfect vocabulary. The goal is really to develop flow first. Because if you're always trying to find exactly the right word, you're really going to struggle to express yourself. So even right now, I've talked about this before, I've mentioned this or really explained in detail this whole idea of moving like water and how you can imagine a river flowing. And the water just kind of flows. The water is very lazy, and if the water meets a rock or something, it just goes around that rock. Okay? So this is moving like water. And your goal when you're in a conversation is really to, especially if you're just developing fluency, you know a lot, but you still struggle to express yourself, the goal here is really to develop flow. And this just means that you can continue speaking. It doesn't really matter what you're talking about, but you're able to keep moving from one word to the next. You can understand what the other person is saying, and you can continue communicating, continue expressing yourself, keeping the flow going. So what water doesn't do is just stop right here. So water is flowing like this, and then it stops, and then we're not going to have the water just doesn't move anymore. All right. Let's see. When he was here, make sure I'm reading these comments correctly. When he was here, these plant were here. Does this sound correct? I don't understand your question. Let me type an actual question in with some quotes around it so I understand what you're talking about. But the point is, again, that often people in a conversation, they will be thinking about something and then suddenly they just stop and they're unable to express themselves. So this kind of part of this is a lack of vocabulary. If you actually know very little, then it's more difficult to communicate. But if you do know a lot and it's perfection that's really stopping you because you're really trying to think of one specific thing and you can't get through it. So you can't remember that specific word, and that's what causes you to struggle to speak. All right. So what I'd like to do is kind of an experiment, and I thought it would be fun to do this live, and that would be speaking Japanese for you. This would be maybe a little bit more difficult if you don't understand Japanese, but I'll explain what I'm talking about. But the point of this is really to show you some of the things I do when I'm speaking, not only in Japanese, but also in English. All right, let me answer this question right quick. When he was here, these plants were here? What? Something, I don't understand what you're trying to say. It looks like you're here. When he was here, these plants were here. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you can say yes if you mean here. Talking about some plants are in a particular location. Yeah, so when I was here, or when I was there, if you're talking about a different place. Yeah, it's 4:30 in the morning. Oh my goodness, go back to sleep. Yes, I'm trying this on a different day today. I thought it would be fun to do this on a different day, so different people can enjoy the video at different times. But yes, you can say something is here in a different way like that. So what I'd like to do is, if someone can give me a topic, and I'll just speak about it in Japanese rather than English, and I'll talk about what I'm doing when I'm doing it. All right. So who has a topic? It doesn't matter what the topic is. I'll talk about anything you like in Japanese. Just showing you how this works. It's easier to do this in a different language, and because obviously my English is much better than my Japanese, but to show you how it works. So just give me a topic, anybody, just comment something, let me know, and I'll start talking about it. If we have anything, doesn't matter what it is. No idea? Really? You guys take forever, hurry up. Give me a topic. Or I'll just start talking about something. But this works much better so it doesn't look like it's planned or anything if you give me a particular topic. So anything just to show you about developing flow in your conversations. So remember, we might have some roadblocks somewhere where the conversation is moving. We're talking about something generally, but we might have to move around that sort of thing. Make sure I'm getting these over here. All right, environment. Nanno kankyo kana? Environment. Kanke kana? では、これは例えば宇宙のことですね。宇宙はもういろんなところがありますね。例えばもう砂漠、 がある。砂漠、ジャングルもあるですね。もう人間がもういろんなところに住んでるけどね。Alright, so I just wanted to start something like that. You say a word like environment. And the first thing I'm doing, I'm just thinking of something off the top of my head. I don't have any plan to talk about the environment. But again, we're beginning here with something like environment. And then we go like, all right, what do I want to talk about the environment? So I just began saying like, there are different places on the earth, just as a general idea, like 地球にもういろんなところがある. So there are many different places on the earth. You might have a desert or a jungle or places where humans live, okay? So the first thing I'm thinking about in my mind, like one way to shift the conversation to something you can talk about, again, we're talking, for this example here, so someone says environment, the conversation is about the environment. I can imagine I'm talking with different people about that. But I can take that conversation in different ways if it's a general thing. Now, someone might ask me a specific question, like what do I think about like global warming or climate change or whatever, something like that. They're asking me about that, or am I an environmentalist, or do I care about the environment? But generally, you can take a conversation and start talking or lead that conversation however you like. So I did that by talking about like, okay, so we begin with a word like environment. And then begin like, my thinking is what kind of environments? So what kind of environments are there? So I'm just going to list a couple of different things, and then I could begin talking about each one of those, all right? So I get here, conversation comes up, and maybe you think, oh no, I don't know anything about the environment, all right? So one way to do this is you're talking about different kinds of environments, okay? So you're thinking, what are you doing for a particular kind of environment or where people live? And again, this is just for one particular thing. I could go, if I'm in a conversation, ask someone back, what do you think about something? So I can ask a question. Like if someone says, do I know anything about environmentalism? And maybe I do not. I say, oh, I don't know. Can you tell me more about that? So in Japanese, it would be the same thing. Like, これは全然わからないね。教えてください。もう面白そうけどね。So maybe I don't know anything about that particular topic, but I can ask a question about it, again, to move around that particular problem that I might have, okay? So when you're in a conversation, the point is not to think of like exactly the right word to say. It's really to develop the flow to be able to switch between these different ways of responding. And often you don't have to have, again, like one way of saying something. I mean, I could talk about different kind of environments. Like, what do you mean by that? Do I mean like living in the ocean or, living, or even like environments in space, something like that? All right, does this make sense? I really want, it's kind of a higher level topic. I know people like videos where you're just talking about here's this vocabulary or something, but the important thing here about the psychology, about your mindset when you're learning, the way you think is really important for the way you communicate. And it's more important to develop the habit of flow, okay? So before you try to become a fantastic speaker, you just want to get flow going, all right? All right, let's see, we got here, it had been a long time, it has been a long time. What is the difference between them? You should watch the video we did, what was that, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I think, 2 days ago. So watch that one. That was like have and has, and we go into great detail about all that. I think you were there for that video as well, but watch that video. Go back and review that again, and that will answer your question. Later in the video, I think we talk about that. All right, let me see if we have any other questions over here. Please talk about intonation. The airport, please. Airport. All right, so let's say someone asks me about, give me something more specific. All right, maybe give me a question or something like that you might ask in a conversation. So anything, and I'll show you different ways of responding to that. So imagine you're having a conversation with me about anything you want, all right? And I'll show you different ways that you can respond to that that will help you develop flow. All right, so this is your chance. Imagine you're speaking with me right now. Just put a question or a comment or something as if we are having a real conversation. So don't worry about grammar or pronunciation or anything like that. The point here is just like, okay, so do you like country music? All right, so the question begins, we're in a conversation with someone. Do you like country music? Now I'm gonna do this in English because I can give you just a bunch of examples and it's faster to explain it that way. So I can say, let's say I don't know anything about it. So someone asks me, do you like country music? All right, so the first thing I could do is I have no idea what country music is. I could say, oh, what is country music? So what is that particular thing? What is country music? And maybe I don't know at all. I say, oh, you mean music from a particular country? Like what country are you talking about? Maybe I don't know anything about that. So if I'm in Spain or Japan or Mexico or Taiwan, whatever, like maybe people say, do you like country music? They think maybe it's the music from my country. So maybe people don't know. Again, I'm just thinking like the way you can respond to this is just asking a question back to the person. What do you mean by that? So what is country music? Or I can say, if I do know something about it, that's when I can begin talking and I can talk about, oh, sure, I like country music. I can just respond back. So do you like something? And then I respond back, oh, yes, I like something. Or I can get more specific with that. So do you like country music? Sure, I like something. And I'll pause right here because one of the things that I often tell learners to do is to add a little bit more each time they explain something or introduce themselves or something like that. So if I'm giving a self-introduction, I'm just explaining to people who I am. I might say, hi, my name is Drew. So I meet someone for the first time, I say, hi, my name is Drew. Hi, my name is Drew. And often English learners, they will have a set thing that they remember and they say, oh, my name is this, my name is that, my name is that. But they often don't practice adding something else to that. Again, the idea is to develop flow. We want to develop flow. We want to not just like stop at one particular thing. We want to practice weaving these different things together. That's how we develop fluency, all right? So as you're learning with me and getting naturally varied review and you're learning the real vocabulary, you begin putting these things together and you can challenge yourself by just adding a little bit extra, maybe one extra thing. So hello, my name is Drew. I'm from Chicago. Do you know anything about Chicago? So I could ask that. And these are the kinds of things I can, again, continue just adding a little bit more to practice and develop flow. All right? So do you like country music? Oh, what is country music? Sure, I like country music. My favorite singers are something, something. All right? Now, often the best way to get a conversation going if you don't really feel very confident about it or you don't know the exact words is to ask questions back to the other person. And you can say, sure, I like country music. Do you like country music? And just ask the person. You're asking the person back, where is Chicago? Chicago's in the United States. Look on a map. Go to Google and type it in. All right? Are you getting this though? So people are often, they think they have a very limited thing that they can say or a limited number of phrases when the truth is there are many different ways you can respond to a question. All right? So if I say, do you like country music? Then you could respond, again, asking a question, responding to the question, or you could be thinking in different ways about how you respond to these questions and talk about the details about country music or the history, or you could even tell a story about maybe something, oh yes, I really like country music. I remember one time when I was 10 years old, I went down to Texas and I was at a bar and I got to hear something like that. All right, let's see, how to start a conversation with a woman. Very good, okay. All right, let me see, I'll check some of these comments. All right, let me see here. All right, but does this make sense? Give me like a thumbs up. Let me know if this makes sense. Because this is not like a sexy thing to talk about, but it's very important for people who want to communicate. Some people are learning English just so they can watch movies and TV shows, which is fine. But the people I help, mostly these are people who really want to express themselves, and they often get stuck. Now remember, there's two basic reasons why people get stuck in conversations. Number one is they just actually don't have the vocabulary. But the second reason is they haven't developed fluency in that vocabulary, usually because of either their psychology, or they just haven't gotten enough review for that vocabulary. And you can do that actually by yourself. All right, so let me see. Are they yours? Are those yours? Are both of these correct? Are they yours? Are those yours? Yes, if you're talking about two different things if you're asking about that. So if I have a marker or two markers in my hand, I say, are these yours? Or if they're far away, are those yours? Or I just talk generally, are they yours? You can use all those are correct. All right. Andre, nice to see you there. Hello. How to start a conversation with a woman. All right, well this channel is gonna get deep. When you use did. All right, I'm gonna have to teach you all some basic things over here, especially having conversations with a woman. Now, I haven't in my life, I am 42 years old. I'll just say hi if she answers you have a conversation. Yes, there is nothing really different about starting a conversation with a woman than starting a conversation with a man. Now, you might find I'm not a dating coach or anything like that. I have talked with lots of women in my lifetime, though, and I didn't find anything really weird about doing it. And I talk kind of equally with men and women just starting conversations. And this is great for especially starting conversations, even if you are just trying to speak with native speakers or anyone else you might want to speak with. But all I do is I look for a particular, I call it an in. So you look for the in. Look for the in. Now the in is a way of getting into the conversation. It's the way of beginning something where you're making some kind of connection with the other person. All right? So look for the in. Let's say I see someone, this often as an example here in Japan, people will have a child with them or a dog or something like that. And the in is talking about that particular thing. So usually I will, like if I'm in an elevator, I've done this, I don't know, thousands of times in Japan. So I'm in an elevator, you know, at a department store or something, and you got maybe like a mom or a parent or something like that, and they've got like a little baby with them. And I'll be standing there too, and I just look down, and usually the baby is looking up at me because I'm a foreigner. I look strange to people out here, especially to a baby. And so I'll tell the baby, I say, keep practicing your English. I say it in Japanese. I'm just like, be sure to learn your English, good luck with your English. And the parent always laughs at that, okay? So that's an in that conversation. Now, maybe nothing happens from that. I'm not trying to get a date with the mother or something, But the point is like the in is the baby. So I'll find something where I'm beginning a conversation about that, but you notice something, you have a reason to start the conversation. If you just walk up to someone and you don't have a reason to be there, you're not commenting on a particular thing that you noticed, then that will feel awkward. So you start the conversation but don't have anything to say. So you need an in to start the conversation. Very simple. So find something, if you are trying to talk with doesn't matter, a man or a woman, anybody, find a reason. The reason even could be like that you were both in the same place. Or I might see someone with like a baseball cap or something from an American sports team. And so I would say, oh, like I know that team. Or like I'll see someone, hey, like that's the team from my hometown or something like that. And I do this even, I was talking with a kid, I mean, I call him a kid, but he's a college student at a Starbucks. He sat next to me and he felt really nervous about talking. And so and this is a Japanese college kid. And when I was speaking with him, I said, oh, you don't have to feel nervous about asking people, questions or saying something to them. I said, just begin with hello. So you can see someone and you can tell who is interested and who is not. You have kind of a sense for that. And you can look at someone, just say hello. And if they say hello back, then maybe you can say something else. Or you comment on something. Oh, I noticed you were doing this. Or I like, it's interesting we are both in the same place. So something like that where you can, again, find a connection between the two of you. That's really what you're looking for. So this is called an icebreaker. So to break the ice, to begin the conversation, you can imagine, most people are shy or they're a little bit nervous or, maybe worried about having a conversation with someone. So you want to break the ice. Okay? Now, hopefully this makes sense to people, but the basic idea for starting a conversation, whether it's with a man or a woman or anyone, is really just trying to notice something about them that maybe other people wouldn't notice. All right? So the more you can notice that, like other people especially will be like, wow, like you noticed I cut my hair, or you noticed I'm wearing this, or I'm doing something. So often we do things to be noticed by other people. So if you notice that, then that's a great way to begin the conversation. It's just one way to do it. All right, greetings from Guatemala. Nice to see you there. All right, let's go back, see if I've gotten some of these. I don't understand what's the difference with what you said. Do you understand? And it's understood. It's just the passive voice versus the active voice. It doesn't matter. So do you understand what I'm saying is the same thing as, is this understood? Or is it understandable? Right? It doesn't matter which way you use it. It's a little bit probably better if I say, do you understand, rather than, am I understandable? How do natives use absurd in conversations? Sudhi, you should Google these different examples and you'll see lots of examples. It's like if you just type in example of absurd or use example or use absurd in conversation. And Google will give you lots of different examples like that's crazy, that's absurd, and you'll see lots of examples like that. Okay, I get it. All right. Let's see, it happens to me most of the time. When I want to start talking, I get nervous. I like the idea of attack by using a question to rescue yourself in a conversation. Yeah, so again, you feel confident if you're prepared for just, I could tell a story. I could say I actually don't know, and I could ask the other person. Really, like often if I don't know something, I say, oh, what's that? And people worry about looking stupid because they don't know something. But I don't know anything about marine biology or, lots of other things. Or people ask me, like places in Japan or something that I've maybe never heard of or never been to, and they will say, what do you know about this? And I say, no, I don't. Please tell me about it. Please give me some information about that. All right, so you don't have to feel bad about not knowing something. The whole point is so you can try to learn something new. All right. Now, hopefully this makes sense. I wanted to make sure people get this because a lot of people, again, they are thinking maybe they have just one thing that they can say. They get a question from somebody and then suddenly they're, we call this like a deer. Like a deer in headlights. So you can imagine a car is driving down the road and there's a deer like walking across and the deer just looks at the headlights and it just freezes like that. And then, maybe it gets hit by a car. Actually, I almost got hit by a car. Yesterday. Now, if you pay attention to my speech, you'll notice I'll talk about something and then I might get an idea and shift to something else. And then if I remember, try to go back to what I'm speaking about. But people in conversations, if they feel nervous because they're trying to think about one specific thing to say. So if I tell a young man He's going to go speak to some girl, and I say, okay, you should try saying this, and he will practice that phrase in his mind. And when he gets to the conversation to try to talk with the girl, he will say that and then maybe mess it up and feel really bad about that. So the point is to have options, all right? Fluency is about having options in conversations. So that if you can't remember this word, then you switch to that word. And it's important to remember that natives are doing this all the time. You probably do this all the time in your native language as well. You want to say something, maybe you don't have the exact right word, or maybe even you think of a good word later after the conversation finishes. I remember being I was in Vienna, in a classroom in Vienna. It was, I think, I don't know if it was a music class or a German class or something. I was just visiting there. I was not studying there. But the teacher gave there's a German word for thinking of a good response after the conversation. There's like a German word for that. And German has all these kind of interesting strings of things that can become words. But I thought that was an interesting thing. All right. But anyway, notice how I'm developing my flow here. I can talk for hours and hours just by flowing around different things, answering different questions, and I can answer that question in many different ways. All right? All right, let's see. Just say, I don't know, but I'm going to find the answer. No, you don't say, I don't know, I'm going to find the answer. You say, you tell me the answer. So you direct the question back to the other person. Okay? So you could say, well, I don't know, and I'm going to find the answer to that. That is okay, but it's much better to direct that back like, oh, you tell me. Often people, they like to speak. People want to communicate. They want to express themselves, and really they want to have other people listen to them. Okay? They want to have other people listen to them. So if you can be a good listener, they will actually think that it was a great conversation, even if you don't say very much. Okay? Isn't that interesting? All right, let's see. Happy to have someone on my side here. Glad to see. Let's see. Teacher, how should I pronounce this word, Ben? How have you been? How have you been? Now, in British English, you might hear, how have you been? Like bean. But American English, typically we say Ben. How have you been? I see people pronouncing it like Ben and others pronouncing it like bean. Yeah, so how have you been? But you don't have to worry so much about perfect pronunciation. It's more about the pronunciation for the people you spend time with. So if you, like me, if I'm in an American group of people and they're speaking to me in American English, then they will understand Ben. But they also understand a British person would probably say bean. How have you been? How have you been? But how have you been in American English? All right, glad to hear. Yeah, in the real life, people say Ben. Yeah, but again, it depends on where they are. The reason why I get nervous during conversation is because of the overthinking. Yeah, so again, the overthinking is the same thing as the perfectionism I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So when you're overthinking, so that's, I guess it's not exactly the same thing, it's related to that, but you're ruining the flow. Remember, the flow is the key here. So I'm gonna have to flow. Even if you can't speak well about something, you want to just develop flow first, even if you're not speaking well about something. And that way you won't overthink it when you're in a conversation. And you don't have to overthink because it doesn't really matter. You have a conversation with someone and maybe you didn't say a word perfectly, or you thought of a better word later. So remember that for next time then. It's like I remember telling a lady at a hotel about, you can improve your speaking, and you have all these chances with each new guest that comes to the hotel. So one person, maybe you make a mistake or something, or you say one thing, but you get all these chances every day to speak with someone new. So to try something new, or to say something, or to make a comment or a joke, something like that. I actually worked at a hotel for a number of years, and that's what I would do. I'd like to keep myself entertained. I'd say, hello, welcome to the hotel, and oh, that's a nice shirt you have on, or something like that. But again, the point is to develop the flow, and the flow gets wasted or ruined when you're thinking too much or you're trying to be perfect about your language. So remember that there are many ways to respond, and when you have options, you actually have a lot more confidence in the conversation. So the basic things are just responding in different ways, like telling a story about the thing, or just even asking a question back to the person, all right? So I gave a few examples of that, but if you'd like more, let me know. But the basic idea is develop flow first, and as you get better with flow, then you can start using more difficult vocabulary or other things like that. I have actually a couple of videos I did a while ago on YouTube about describing things at different levels of fluency, or different, I guess you could call it like different levels of communication ability. And so I talked about like describing a shoe at different levels of communication ability. If you look on YouTube, you will find this. So just taking like a shoe, and this is the same way I might describe, like let's say I'm going to do this in Japanese, all right? So there's a shoe, これは靴です。これ大きい靴ですね。大きい。これは重いかな？重いかな？ And so I've just said this is a shoe, this is a big shoe, this is, maybe it's heavy, all right? So I'm just giving some very, very simple things like this is a shoe. Or this is heavy, or this is big, or this is whatever, all right? And so I'm just describing this. Now again, the point of developing flow is to show you that there are different options. So if we want to talk about flow, so one option, let's begin here. Erase this. Erase this shoe. You fit all these on here. Okay, so we want options. And we could have to describe something and just describe it physically. This is a marker. This is a black marker. This is a nice marker. This marker writes well. All right? Now I'm using some very simple sentences like this is something. And I'm just describing it in a very simple way. Now you can do this anytime with just to develop flow by yourself if you want to actually practice using the speech you have. Again, you develop good flow by understanding the vocabulary really well, and then you're really just using these different things in a conversation, and it becomes longer speech as you practice these. So this is a marker, this is a black marker, this is a marker that I have been using for 2 weeks. All right, so now I'm starting to make it a little bit longer. This is a marker that I have been developing, or that I've been using for 2 weeks. This is the marker that I got from my father. All right? So very simply, you can look at things and just talk about them. This is a red marker. I like this marker more than this one. So we begin with basic things, and you begin developing flow even with a few short sentences. This is a marker. This is a black marker. I like this marker. Okay, you're still developing flow even though the sentences are simple. It's just getting yourself in the mood of talking about something. So one option here is to describe something, okay? And again, we talked about other options like asking a question. So you could ask a question about that thing or about, whatever the particular, like the thing is, or if someone asks you a question, you can still ask them a question back, all right? So I can also tell a story. I can tell a story about that thing. So this is a marker. I remember, and I even about like this marker, maybe it reminds me of a different story about something else. So I remember the first marker I got when I was a kid. Okay? Does that make sense? So there are different ways to describe something at different levels, but the point is really to develop flow first. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. It doesn't matter if it's only simple sentences. But if you could say 10 simple sentences in a row, that's going to get you really excited about speaking because you're speaking. You got the flow even if the language is not difficult. all right? I know a lot of people, they learn difficult vocabulary, but then they can't use it. They don't have any flow. So the flow doesn't come from difficult language. It's not about advanced vocabulary. It's your ability to speak. So just like me right now, I have flow in my language. I'm describing things. I'm asking questions. I'm telling stories about something. So I describe a shoe. This is a shoe. And at this point, okay, like, I wonder, where did it come from? I'm asking a question about that. Or I think, yeah, maybe I ask another question. How old or where was this shoe made? Okay. And then maybe I think, I get an idea. Oh, I remember, so I'm going to tell a story. I remember when I bought some new shoes last week. That's not even an interesting story. But the point is, I'm developing flow without thinking about trying to be perfect or overthinking. I just want to keep the conversation, I want to keep the speech moving, just to develop the habit of that. All right? That's how I'm able to speak for a long time. All right. Let me go back and see if there's any questions over here. It is also good to describe something that you can't remember the name. Yeah. So I've talked about that before as well. So excellent point. So if you can't remember something, you can ask someone like, what's the name of that thing? I can't remember. It's like a kind of long, thick. You can write with it. It's black, and then the other person might say, "Oh yeah, that's a marker." All right, or a pen or whatever. And so that's how you can, again, develop flow. The point is not to think of a specific thing. It's just to develop the flow of using the language. All right. So let's see. Listening a lot to real conversations makes the flow easier. Also, I believe. Yeah. So you're getting examples of that from native speakers, and this is why I teach people with native examples, because you want to see how natives are responding in different situations. So when someone orders food at a cafe, what do they say? When a parent is yelling at their child, what do they say? Okay? All right, let's see here. Yes, so the key here is like, even if you say 10 short sentences, this is a marker, this is a big marker, this is a black marker, this is a light marker. Even if you're just speaking simply, you will feel more confident just because you're continuing to speak. You're developing the flow. All right, so you can do that. It doesn't matter about having big words or advanced vocabulary. It's just about using the vocabulary that you have. All right. So what's the difference between respond and answer? Respond and answer. Well, typically answer is just like for a particular question, but you can respond without getting a question from someone. But these words are, again, it's better, instead of looking at what's the difference between these two words, is to just get lots of examples in different situations, because sometimes they mean the same thing and other times they do not. All right? So I'm responding right now to your question. I'm also answering your question. So that's the same thing. But sometimes I might be, maybe someone is just talking with me. They say hello, and I say hello back. I'm not answering them. I mean, you could say that, but I'm more responding. It's not really a question they're asking me. I'm just replying back to that person. All right, what's the question difference between will and shall? Again, this is one of those things where words have multiple meanings. And so it's better, like, instead of trying to think about will and shall as individual words, think about how you would use these. So typically, like, you might hear the example of like, what shall we do? What shall we do? What shall we do? What shall we do for dinner? What shall we do for dinner? Often this will be contracted to what'll. What do we do for dinner? What do we do for dinner? What shall we do? People typically do not say, what shall we do? That's kind of like older English. It sounds a little bit more proper than people would use it. And you can also, so what will is the same kind of thing. So what do we do? And this is also contracted like that. All right. So typically people are saying like, what'll we do? when I don't know, what do we do for dinner? What will we do if aliens come? You know, if there's an alien attack. So it would take a while to go through all the different explanations. These are the kinds of things that I do in programs because the point is not to just get an explanation about it. You want to see lots of examples, and that's how you develop an understanding, so you use it fluently, all right? But this is a basic idea of will, like in this usage, for this example, you're talking about what will I do? Like if something happens, what is my response to that? What will I do? And then shall is like maybe just a more polite kind of expression for that. What shall we do for dinner? Like what's a good idea for dinner? What shall we do? What should we do? All right. So remember that big, when people ask me these questions a lot, again, it's a good question. I understand why people have it. But natives don't ask a question like that. Natives don't ask, like, what's the difference between will and should, or will and shall, or whatever. What they are thinking is, in this situation, so in some particular situation, what should I say? All right? All right, first time to watch your videos, very interesting. Glad to hear it. Welcome. All right, so let's see. I have watched a lot of videos, but I couldn't speak. It means we will have to be in an English-speaking country. No, that's the wrong response. All right. So what builds fluency? What builds fluency? I know people are always curious about fluency, so let's talk about that. What builds fluency? And with my messy writing over here. So what builds fluency? It's not living in an English-speaking country. And we know it's not living in an English-speaking country because many people live in English-speaking countries and do not get fluent. All right? So living in an English-speaking country. No. All right? Someone said practice. Now what does that mean, practice? Practice. Practice what? Practice how? Accuracy first, then fluency. A lot of interesting ideas over here. All right, the basic idea, it's one word, very simple. Understanding. How well you understand something, think about your native language, all right? Forget learning English for a moment. If your friend said, hey, you have to give a speech about something, if it's something you know well, you understand it well, you could probably talk about that thing and feel pretty confident about that. But if you have to give a speech about something you don't know anything about, you don't understand anything about that, you're not going to feel very confident about it. All right? So it's not living in an English-speaking country or having like people, like a parent or whatever that you can understand with or whatever. It's just understanding the language and what it means and how it works. And what happens is most people, I've given this example before, but I'll give it again because it's a good example. Most students, actually I won't even blame the students or the teachers. Really the problem is the brain. So I drew my picture of the brain earlier. Here's another brain picture. So this is your brain up here, all right? Now the interesting thing about the brain, we learn this from neuroscientists, so people who study the brain and how it works, is there is a part of your brain that actually lights up and gets excited about new things. So your brain thinks, ooh, new. Let me focus on new. All right? So when you get something new, the brain is always interested in new information because if you know something already, then really the brain doesn't need to learn about that. So if you see a new person in your environment, then the brain is excited about that new person. All right? I know this is a weird idea, but the point is that the brain is naturally interested and attracted to new things. So it makes us feel good when we see new things. And this means we will go to YouTube and watch 10 new videos about vocabulary, but we don't remember what we learned. And we don't really understand what we learned because we didn't get enough examples. All right? So because the brain is interested in new information, we're always trying to put kind of new information, a new vocabulary, a new phrase or something into our mind. But this is like a seed. Each one of these is like a seed. And if you don't go back and water it, you don't give it fertilizer and sunlight and, care or whatever, then it's not going to grow into a plant. It will wither and die. And this is what happens to most people as they learn languages. So the problem most people have, this is probably the biggest problem with language learning, is our desire for something new. Because this means we get bored very easily about anything that we've covered before. All right? So because of this problem right here, does everybody understand this? Your brain loves new things and it's bored by things that you've seen before. So this means it's really difficult, even for good students, to review information. Most people do not want to review the lessons that they've already learned. So if you've seen a video one time, you will probably not want to watch it again because it's not new anymore. Okay? It's like it's old news, it's old information. Even if you don't really know the information very well. So you watch a video on YouTube, like the difference between will and shall. We're going to watch a 10-minute video about will and shall. Did that really help you learn will and shall? Really? You're probably at the end of that video thinking like, well, what about this? What about that situation? What if we do this? And again, it's putting more questions into your mind, is not actually helping you understand the information. So the much better strategy is to still focus on something. So how do we do this? Okay, so if you want to do this, like learning a word one time, as I've covered on these videos before, all right? So repetition, so somebody just said repetition is the mother of perfection. Yeah, well, here's the trick, all right? So repeating things, repetition is boring. This is why most people just won't do it, all right? So it's boring. Most people won't do it. It doesn't matter if it's like practicing some drums or practicing shooting a basketball or whatever. It's boring for people because of how our brains operate, okay? So because practice is boring, people don't want to do it. But you need to practice in order to get fluent, okay? Now, the repetition, and the reason we need repetition, especially with the goal of understanding, is because you need to get more than one example of some word for you to really understand it. If I just say like, I will go somewhere. Okay, maybe we're thinking that's the future tense. But if we talk about like someone's will, like the will to do something, okay? Then it's like a different usage of the word. So the word will by itself doesn't really mean anything. That's the tricky thing about vocabulary. So you can't learn a word one time and then use it fluently. It's basically impossible to do. You have to get lots of different examples. And that's the key. So what you don't want to do is just repeat information. Repeating information is not teaching you anything new. And it's not building your fluency. It's just saying the same thing again and again. Now, this is important if you're trying to practice a punch in like a martial art or something like that. But for fluency, what you need is naturally varied review. Very important. So naturally varied review solves the problem of getting understanding without being bored. Okay? And by naturally varied review, I mean you're looking at the different usages of the same thing. So it's not just one example of something, you're looking at the different uses of that thing. All right? Now let me stop for a second here and go back. It looks like there's a bunch of comments about various things. No, it's living in an English-speaking country. You're right, helps just want to develop some, but the situation rarely happens. They don't have time to speak with unknown people. No, it's living in a speaking country, right? Yes, if you mean it is not like, yes. The secret to fluency is not living in the country where you're trying to speak. That's helpful if you learn the right way. but it's no less helpful than being where you are and learning the right way. So you can learn the right way anywhere. So I came to Japan and spent a year, almost a year, trying to learn, and I was living in Japan, surrounded by Japanese people, and I still didn't get fluent. Why not? All right? The reason I didn't get fluent is because of how I learned. It's not because I was finally in Japan or anything else. All right? All right, let's see if we keep answering these questions over here. So don't mind critical questions make your video interesting. Yes, I'm one of the things that I have to do to help people is really change what they believe about learning. So most learners have beliefs about learning, like you need to live in an English-speaking country. But why do you have that belief? Most of this is just, it's like what we hear from other people, or people, teachers will tell us that we need to do certain things, so we just believe it without really asking if that's true. Oh no, it's an ambulance again. Just like usual, there's always something. So the important idea here is that when you hear something like you need to live in an English-speaking country to get fluent, just ask yourself if there's a counter example. Do I know anyone who lives in an English-speaking country that doesn't speak fluently? And I know lots of them. I have lots of students who are like that. All right, so the people who come to me for help, a lot of them are like that. So they've been living in the United States or the United Kingdom or Canada or wherever for a long time, and they still can't speak. They know a lot. It's the same example before about planting seeds. They keep getting all these seeds planted, but they're not really getting lots of different examples of those things, and that's why they don't develop fluency. Okay? I'm maybe giving too many different examples and talking about too many different things. Hopefully it's not confusing. Let me know if you have questions about what I'm saying, but the understanding is the key here. It's not repeating things over and over again, because repeating things doesn't build your fluency. And remember, fluency is really about building a network. All these things, it's the connections you make. So if you have one thing, like one phrase, and you just repeat it over and over again, you're not building any network with this at all. You're not developing, okay, this also means this, and that means that, and that's connected to that. It's the network that lets you speak. Just like we talked at the beginning of this video about options. The flow that you get means you can easily move from this thing to that thing to this thing to that thing. But if you don't know the answer to this, or you make a mistake or something, that's it. There's nothing else. There's nowhere else to go. That's why people get stuck in conversations. All right? Let me make sure people are following me here. Neither and either makes me confused sometimes. Yeah. Again, you need to get lots of examples. And when you say like something makes you confused, and this is a common thing, it's not your fault, it's just people need more examples, way more examples until they really understand something. All right? So as an example, I'll teach you some Japanese badly. I'll give you a bad lesson in Japanese. Let me see if I can do something, let's see. Well, we'll just do this. Ow. 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 Now, if you followed my videos for a while, you might know what that means. But if you can guess, what do you think ow means? Just type that in the comments right now. Remember, this is a bad lesson. It's a bad lesson. And it's bad because you don't really know what I'm saying. There are a couple different things, so go ahead and just comment right now. What does ow mean? All right. So Hen says pen. Marker. Syed says marker. Yes, Raza is interested in improving the value of the video. Yes, continue doing what you're doing. Blue. Olga says blue. All right. So 3 different people had 3 different things to say. That's why it's a bad lesson. The level of understanding that you get from that is basically 0. You're guessing. You don't really know. Okay? So that's why it's a bad lesson. Ow means blue. Okay? But only, it's a pretty simple example, but this is how most people teach. And the reason they use translations is because they can't help you understand something in the language. All right? So if you say like, oh, it's a marker or it's blue, it means you don't really understand what I'm saying. So that's my fault as a teacher for not explaining it well. Okay? Let me give you a better lesson now. Same examples. All right? Yes, it could also be like nails, fingers, hand. Who knows? The point is it's not clear, so you don't really understand the vocabulary. When you understand, you feel confident and you speak. All right? これは青。青。黒。赤。マーカー。マーカー。マーカー。マーカー。マーカー。青いマーカー。黒。黒いマーカー。赤いマーカー。黒。黒。青、黒、赤、黒。黒。青いマーカー、黒いマーカー、黒いマーカー、赤、赤いマーカー、黒、黒いマーカー。Okay? Now, if I could teach you like that every day, you would become fluent in Japanese. All right? You don't have to be in Japan to learn that way. I just proved it. You just proved it. Does that make sense? So what I'm doing, I'm using the way your brain wants to learn. This is called comprehensible input. It's just like a technical way of saying you understand my messages. If I just show you something like blah, then of course you can't use that fluently. But as you get more examples, you're like, I get it. I figured it out. So I'm not telling you what the language is. That's what a teacher does. That's why I'm a guide. I'm trying to help you understand something without just telling you everything. The more you understand something by yourself, the more confident you feel about that. And that's when you start speaking. Okay? Wakarimasu. Now I can say these things in Japanese too. Yeah, and see how quickly it happens. All right? Notice how quickly that happens. When people say like, you have to spend many years or learn many words in order to become a fluent speaker. That's incorrect. The correct thing is you get fluent word by word as you understand something. This is why children can speak fluently even though they have a smaller vocabulary than most adult learners. All right? Kuro. Kuroi maka. Aka. Akai maka. Now, you will probably forget this lesson tomorrow, and that's okay. Again, that's how the brain works. Unless you need that information, the brain will just let it go. But if you come back again tomorrow and I review it with you, and I don't just talk about markers, I talk about other things. これはね、紫。紫かな。紫。これ赤。赤かな。赤じゃない。赤じゃない。赤じゃない。赤じゃない。青じゃない。青でしょ。赤じゃない。これ紫。紫かな。青。赤。All right? Now I'm confusing myself over here as I do this, but the basic idea is that if I can help you understand something and you understand it, then you can use it fluently. All right? But it usually takes, again, like our seed example, I need to give you something many times for you to feel very confident about that. Now, something simple like a color, you can usually get that pretty quickly. But other things, like the things we talked about in this video before, like will and shall or whatever, then those are going to be a bit more difficult. They take more time, they need more examples, all right? But for people who want to speak fluently, that's all you need. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let me see if there's any more questions. And I think that will end it for me today. This has been a good video. All right. Let's see. Talk about the process at you learning Japanese. Give us some examples. Okay. So the brain is trying to keep energy, don't expend on a repetitive thing. It's very hard to review. Yeah. So, I mean, people in general do not want to review or to think. It's generally difficult for people to do that. People don't want to. Like you're saying, about expending energy. People don't want to do that. So I gave already a quick example about how I learned Japanese, but that's it. So I think there are some new people watching this, so I'll tell my story very quickly before I end the video. So I spent basically 15 years trying to learn different languages. So this is Spanish, French, Latin, and Japanese also. And almost a year of this, was in Japan trying to learn Japanese, and I still couldn't get fluent. All right? I took the English Anyone program 2 years ago, and it helped me improve my English dramatically. Glad to hear it. Fantastic. If you know other people, send them our way. So when I was learning, I was learning different languages and learning the traditional way. So using translations, studying grammar tables, trying to review vocabulary. And even in Japan, it's so important to understand this because I thought being in Japan was the secret, but it was not, okay? But once I discovered understanding is the key, that's when I got fluent, all right? So I started basically understanding the language like a native. That's what this is. So when I teach you like a native, this is how an adult Japanese person would teach a Japanese child. They're not using English to teach Japanese. You can't use translations with a child because they don't understand them. So the only thing you can do is make the language understandable. And if you do this in English, you will become a fluent speaker of English, all right? Isn't that cool? This is the whole secret right here. Now, probably the most amazing thing, I know I'm always like, anytime I say I'm finishing a video, I always go longer, but you know. All right. My big problem, as I was learning the traditional way was, we call this a vicious cycle, So the problem was I was shy, and so I would not speak. Does anyone else have this problem? You feel shy, so you don't speak. And then you start feeling more shy because you don't speak. And it gets worse and worse. Anyone else experience this? So I'm not really like a shy person in general. You know, and it's weird if you take a person, and if you put me in Germany, I would be like, I don't know any German, but I would feel a little bit more shy because I can't express myself. You know, I'm like you take that away from the person, and our ability to communicate is the most important tool that we have. Okay. So what's happening here is, and it seems like it's impossible to get fluent. All right. So you feel shy because you don't know the language very well, and then you don't speak. So you don't, again, like it's going around in a circle like this. We call this a vicious cycle, Now what we want is a virtuous cycle. A virtuous cycle is the opposite, where something is like positive and it's making you better and better. All right, so what I discovered about language learning is this. So if you feel shy because you don't know the language very well, and you don't want to make mistakes in front of other people, so you don't speak. And this is what stops people from getting fluent. Well, Fabiano's back. Nice to see you there. Well, are you doing lives more often now? I'm thinking about it. A hellish cycle. Yeah, you could call it that. So the reason more people struggle with this is because they don't know that you get fluent from understanding, not speaking. All right? So the idea of this is like, I need to speak. So the belief of this is, I need to speak to get fluent. I need to speak to get fluent. But they're too shy, so they don't speak, and they get stuck in this. But the truth is, you don't need to speak to get fluent. And this is the same lesson I've been teaching for 20 years, all right? You don't need to speak. to get fluent. You don't need to speak to get fluent. All right? You need to understand to get fluent. And so this means you can become a fluent speaker silently. Isn't that cool? And this is the most exciting thing I discovered, because I learned, wow, I can just understand Japanese, and when I feel comfortable, because I know the language well enough, then I can start speaking. And that's what I did. All right? It wasn't about forcing myself to speak and repeat things or whatever. It was just, let me understand the language really well. And I can do that very quickly if I learn the right way. All right? Let me go back and, yeah, but it seems like lots of people have this same thing. When I watch a movie or TV show, there's always some words that I don't know yet. What do you recommend to do about it? Put down on a paper or search the meaning and definition and translation. You want to get more examples. It's naturally varied review that builds your fluency. So if you're watching a movie, as Adriano was talking about, if you're watching a movie and you notice a word, and you go to Google and just type that word in. Look at maybe like 10 different examples of that word. Then you go to YouTube and get 10 different examples of that word also. You will find, I mean, you can just put any word into YouTube and it will bring you some kind of video or audio about that thing. But the point is to get naturally varied review. All right? The naturally varied review is what helps you understand it. It also helps it makes it memorable so you don't forget the word when you speak. Remember, traditional repetition, like people call this spaced repetition. If we're going to review a word, here's a flashcard. I'm going to look at it again in 5 minutes or whatever. It's the same thing. Why would you do this when it's much better to get naturally varied review? And in a very short period of time, you really understand what it is. Yes, contextualization is part of that as well, but really it's just understanding the language. That's it. Until you feel that you really understand something, you will not be confident about using it. All right? Until you feel that you really understand, you will not feel confident using it. So this is why many people often use very simple sentences in conversations, because they don't feel confident about using something more advanced. They don't really understand it very well. So it's just spending more time with that individual word or phrase. So I'm in Canada, and it is true, fluency don't get better if I don't know how to apply my vocabulary. Yeah, and so the problem most people have is like they try to practice. They call that practicing, saying the same word again and again. Now this is how I used to think this way too, like 20 years ago. So before I started understanding all this, it was about, yeah, let me just like say the same word again and again. But it's not building fluency. Again, fluency is the network. It's not knowing one thing and repeating that again and again. See if we have anybody else. With all due respect, I completely agree with you. You mean disagree? Oh, with all due respect for you. Okay. So typically, when you use the phrase with all due respect, it means then you're going to do the opposite when you say that. So this is another, that's a slightly different way of saying that. But again, I'm confused because of the context of that. Usually when people say with all due respect, I disagree. So I respect you, but I'm going to disagree with what you said. All right. Let's see. So Fabiano asked, I think you've missed most of this live. Are you doing, I've missed most of this live. Are you doing lives more often now? It's interesting. I was talking with a friend of mine maybe like a week ago, and I said, I do what I do because I like seeing people when they understand something. That's like my favorite moment in the day or for what I do, seeing people understand something. And I don't teach classes in person anymore. I only do things online, and I can't even see you out there, but I can tell by the comments that people get when they understand something, and that gets me excited. All right, so that's why I do what I do, and I thought I really like, seeing that or feeling that from people. I like to help people understand things, and so that's why, I like these examples with the markers or anything else. That's why I do what I do, and help you understand. And so when I wanted to do that more, so lately I've been like, yeah, I should maybe do some more lives. And it's easier for me to make lives than to record videos and edit them and do all that. Let's see. So Fabio says, I can understand you now, but when I watch a movie, it's more difficult. Yeah. So typically a movie, you're going to get more difficult vocabulary or vocabulary that you're not familiar with. Accents will be difficult. The speech will be faster as well. So what I do in my programs, like in Fluent for Life, I'm going to take you from understanding movies or take you from understanding me, understanding teachers, to understanding movies. All right? So I take you like step by step from understanding people like me, and I'm speaking clearly, to understanding people that are not speaking clearly in movies. So even if you don't want to become a fluent speaker, if you just want to understand like a native, that's what you could do in Fluent for Life. All right, let's see if we have any more questions. Let's see, Amy Amani says, when I put subtitles, sometimes I don't understand. If I put it off, I understand faster and clear. That's interesting. Yeah, some people, each person is different, I guess, like that. I've been following it for a long time now. Most of what I know of English I learned from you. Fantastic. Nintendo Dreaming. Do you have a Switch? I have a Switch. I play that sometimes. Does the fluency has to do with fast speaking, or are they different? No, fluency just means you've got flow. I can speak very slowly and I'm still fluent. All right? It means I don't get stuck. Oh no, what am I going to say? Imagine if I couldn't speak and I'm doing this video like I get stuck often. All right? So I don't I wouldn't worry about being fast. I think someone said before about accuracy before speed. And that's true. All right, let's see. I'll take maybe like two more minutes over here. Can you explain subpoenaed and unfathomable? Those questions don't have, or those words don't have anything to do with what you must have heard those in a TV show or something like that. All right, when you learn a word that you don't know, Google it. And also put it in YouTube, like I just told you before. And then you will learn lots of different examples. Now, I know people will get angry at me about this. But it's true. So the thing people get angry at me about is they say, give me a definition for a word. Give me a definition. What does bark mean? What does bark mean? So bark means, it could be different things. We've got bark like the sound of a dog, like row, 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 the barking of a dog. Or we've got the bark of a tree, like the skin on the outside of the tree. Now the reason this is important is because the bark of a word, like this word here, it doesn't mean anything by itself. All right? It's always the context. It's always when did you hear that thing? And so when you learn a word and you think, tell me the definition of that word, even if you go to a dictionary and get a definition, you will probably not remember it anyway. And that's why you need your network. You need the naturally varied review that's going to help you understand that thing. So people get angry at me when they say like, well, tell me the definition, all right? Another reason I don't want to tell people just the definitions of words is because that stops you from discovering that yourself, all right? Very important idea. If you are watching a mystery movie or a TV show and you are almost near the end and you're like, oh, I think I know who did it, and I come in and I just tell you the answer, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? So I come in and you're watching a movie, I say, oh, that guy did it. And I tell you the answer to the movie. You would feel pretty angry about that. I mean, you might not really care, but you would be disappointed that you didn't get to discover that for yourself. And that's what I like to do, all right? When you discover something yourself, you own that thing, all right? It's not about me telling you a definition. When you understand something by yourself, like the marker example I gave you before, because I taught that in a natural way, I made it understandable, then you think, I learned some Japanese, and you feel good about that. Because you figured it out. I didn't just tell you the answer. Oh, red means aka in Japanese. All right, let me see if I can really get out of here. All right, I want to know things about spelling, like how to spell. If anybody is interested in that, go to English. EnglishAnyone.com/Frederick, and this will teach you everything about spelling, pronunciation, listening in one simple app. All right. If you don't have this already, get this. It's an awesome app, and it will teach you, again, the same way I gave you before, just like these markers. It's going to let you understand these things rather than me telling you what they are. All right. Every word you say makes me understand more about how to be fluent. You teach me what others don't. Glad to hear it. Vincent from South Africa, can reading books improve my fluency? Yes, it doesn't matter if you're reading books, watching movies, whatever that thing is. If you understand, that's how you're going to get fluent. Some people like reading books. Some people like listening to podcasts or whatever. It's not about like what method that thing is. It's do you understand what you're hearing or not? That's it. All right. Let's see. You ignored my above comment. Well, there's a whole bunch of comments up here. Let's see. I understand native speakers, but when reading books, I struggle. I could not finish a book named 12 Rules for Life in 2 years. Yeah, again, like the reading, the skills that you have about like reading or listening or whatever. Like for me, my Japanese, my speaking is way better than my reading ability. That's just what I wanted to get good at. And now I have to go back and get good at reading and writing as well. But typically people will speak well or read well or whatever. And so it's just the things that you happen to focus on for that skill. So reading takes time to learn how to do that. Just like my kids are learning to do that now. I have some American friends. When I think I am fluent and I meet this friends in a conference and I have a chance to talk, I can't talk, my words disappear. Yeah, so again, this is the kind of thing that happens to people. It's because they don't get enough review, the naturally varied review. And so you think you know things and then natives suddenly use a different word that you don't know or something, you're like, I don't know that vocabulary, all right? So if you get naturally varied review, if you'd like to learn more, even if you never learn with any of my programs, read about Fluent for Life. On my site, on EnglishAnyone.com. There's no link on this video yet. There will be one in the future. But if you want to learn about Fluent for Life, this will tell you exactly why you struggle to speak, how to get fluent, and you can do it really by yourself without having a person to practice with. All right, last questions over here. Do you know Matt versus Japanese? No, I do not. Is learning, I also don't, I don't spend any time learning Japanese on YouTube. This learning English related to memory, sometimes I find it hard to summon the words and I want to use. Yeah, so again, if you have maybe one example of something, you learned it a little bit, but you didn't get naturally varied review, then of course you will struggle to remember that thing. So often people have that problem where they know the vocabulary, but when they're in a conversation, it just won't come up. And that's because they're really, number one, like we talked about at the beginning of this video, they're trying to think really hard about one particular word rather than like, okay, maybe I'll just use something else. All right, so there are a couple different things there, but the most important one is that naturally varied review. They don't quite understand things like a native. All right, let's see if English is difficult to me because the language is spoken mostly with metaphors in everyday situation. I don't know if that's true, but what are my plans for the rest of the day? Well, I'm going to do some work. Do you have a naturally varied review course only? Yes, that is what Fluent for Life is. And I'm the only person who provides this to my knowledge. I don't think anybody else teaches this way. Everybody else is basically doing this. Like, okay, class, we're going to learn this word, this word, this word, this word, this word, or we're going to learn some vocabulary and grammar and we're going to study some rules, that kind of thing, or we're going to do some translations. And all of these things hurt your ability to speak. You can learn a language in many different ways, but this is how you speak. If you want to actually speak, you need naturally varied review. It's the most important part of the review because without the review, you don't get fluent, all right? You can know a lot of English, but if you can't actually use that vocabulary fluently, then you're wasting your time. All right. So I started to learn English with Mine America, Mine Monica, without translating any word in Portuguese, only English. I'm still learning. Yeah. So if you're, number one, like it should be all in English. So whatever you're learning, it should be all in English, not using Portuguese or Thai or whatever the other language your native language is. But if you want to speak fluently, all in English, and then just make sure you're understanding what you learn. It's really that simple. But most teachers are saying like, okay, class, we're going to give some grammar rules and we're going to review grammar. But you don't get fluent like that. Natives don't get fluent like that. You didn't get fluent like that in your native language. So why would you learn that way to learn a new language? All right? There's no such thing as a second language. I'll say this again and again. There's no such thing as a second language. It's just how you learn different languages. Yes, so children don't study grammar. Children don't study grammar. Do you know Stephen Krashen? Yes, so this is the same, it's based on the same idea. So Stephen Krashen discovered the same thing I did. We discovered it in different ways. So he did it through, research and watching students. I did it by watching kids in Japan and just saying like, wow, look at that. Japanese kids are understanding the language and that's how they learn. They're not studying books. They're not getting translations because that's impossible. You can't teach a young child through translations because they only know what their native language is. So all you can do is make the language understandable. It's the only way to learn. And if you just do that in different languages, that's how you learn those languages. It's very simple. So I talked about this. The last thing I'll leave people with, last idea, how you learn. How you learn is how you speak. How you learn is how you speak. If you learn through translations and grammar tables and trying to review vocabulary this way, instead of just understanding it, then of course, when you speak, you will struggle, you will think about vocabulary, you will translate, you will organize sentences in your head. All right? So if you want to speak, then you just have to understand the same way, just like you learned your native language. All right? This is what I do in Fluent for Life. All right. I think that should be it. Arigato, sensei. Let's see. So I know a very, very wide range of vocabulary and advanced ones, but I can't recall them in conversation. Any solution? This is the solution. All right. Does your country have student scholarship? I don't know. You have to look at Japan. I don't know if you want to come to Japan or not, but that's how you do it. Anyway, I'm going to finish this. Yes, I am American, but I live in Japan, so I'm in Japan right now. All right, so if you want to become a fluent speaker, understanding like a native, getting naturally varied review, that will build your fluency automatically, even if you don't have anyone to practice with. And then, when you feel comfortable, because you really know the language well, then you start to speak. All right? Fluent for Life has the words to make the review. Yes, we cover everything. There's like, 13,000 words in the program, but you get to choose what you learn. All right? It's like working with me personally, but you get to choose that. That's what Fluent for Life is. So Fluent for Life, basically the three big things that you have. Number one, you get to learn what you want to learn. It's not like taking a class where you have to study a certain schedule or something like that. You learn what you want to learn and get fluent in that. You pick a particular topic and just follow the steps and get fluent in that. Second, I'm really helping you learn with a system that gets you fluent automatically. So rather than you trying to think about things and study them again and again, you just go through the steps and you get fluent automatically, even if you don't speak. And the third thing is you get lots of other things besides the language that you're learning. So lots of all the the secrets and the techniques and things that I've learned over 20 years, I share all of them in Fluent for Life. These are things like how to have interesting conversations, the things that you can say, like the incorrect grammar that you can use in conversations, other things like that. So lots of the psychology as well that I talked about at the beginning of this video. So if you want all of that, konnichiwa. From Jay. All right. Do you get your major income from YouTube lessons? No, I do not. You also notice I don't have any advertising on my YouTube videos. Pretty much every person who teaches English on YouTube is going to have advertising on their channel, but I find that is distracting for learners, and I don't want people to come to my channel and have to wait and watch ads for random things. I advertise on other people's channels, but I don't want to put advertising on my own channels. I want to make sure people understand. Get right to the videos. All right. Will you do a discount soon for Fluent for Life? We're probably going to raise the price actually for Fluent for Life very soon. It's discounted currently. So if you'd like to get it, this is the time to get it right now. It's like 94% off. We can't make it much cheaper than that. But again, if your goal is to become a fluent speaker, and especially if you need English for your career, you won't find a better investment than improving your ability to speak. All right? All right, I'm losing my voice. Let's see, you mean do the lessons? I have some of them. I don't know what, Sylvia, if you have a question about lessons that you already have, send us a mail at info@englishanyone.com. I have no idea what you have just watching this video. Can you give us a way to have good memory, please? That's it. We have a memory training, a specific memory training in Fluent for Life as well that covers all this. But again, the very simple way to do it is to understand like a native. All right, I'm going to run, but it's been a pleasure. It's great seeing all of you here. And again, I'll see you in the next video, probably on Monday, actually my time in Japan. I'm trying to do these on different days to give different people opportunity to learn with me, get some more exposure. That way, hopefully, I can take care and positive of your gentleness. Yes. Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye. I'll see you all then. And if you're around on Monday, so that'd be Japanese time, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.